Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's class on constitutional law. This week we're going to have a bifurcated class. We're going to start with an introduction, and then later on in the week I'll release the second class discussing the cases I have you all go over. We're going to do this a little bit differently because we're getting into constitutional amendments and, more importantly, the Bill of Rights. And I could have you read the cases up front, but I think it's better to introduce the amendment and then go over the things I want you to talk about. For the next few lessons, we'll then do this bifurcated class where we'll introduce some amendments and then discuss cases surrounding them. Because this is the first week, this starting chunk, there are not any cases to brief, but this week you'll have a couple to do. Let's jump right in with the First Amendment. The text of the First Amendment is that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. There's a whole bunch to unpack there, and unfortunately we don't have time to go into all of it. I will lecture on some of the other amendments, but something I find really interesting is what I refer to as the flag cases. If you Google the flag cases, some other people refer to it as well. And that is these two here. This is what we're going to read for this chunk. First is Minersville School District versus Gobitz. And the second is West Virginia State Board of Education versus Burnett. As you read these cases, of course, you're going to have the normal discussion question, or you can do the normal discussion board where I really don't care what you say, as long as you're completing the assignment. But one thing I do want you to think about, because we'll talk about it next class, is why in the span of 3 years? If you notice that Minersville was decided in 1940 and West Virginia was decided in 43. In 3 years, the Supreme Court completely changed their opinion. So please discuss that a little bit, or at least think about it in anticipation for next week. The Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is one of those examples where I'm going to give you a newer case, and that's because this right wasn't very well defined up until 2008. I'm going to have you read District of Columbia versus Heller, and this is the definitive case on the Second Amendment right now. With this case, I want you to consider why Scalia is working so hard to explain every single part of this amendment. We will also touch base on the New York pistol case from last term, because the way we're interpreting the Second Amendment now is something that should be of great interest to everybody, whether or not you believe that everyone should have an unabridged right to bear arms. Finally, we're lumping the Third Amendment in here because it really doesn't fit anywhere. And we'll talk about that. Well, I'll have you think about it, but we'll talk about it next class as well. The Third Amendment says no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. There are not very many cases dealing with this. There is one Federal Court of Appeals case that I've been able to find. I'm not going to have you read it because we're more interested with the Supreme Court here. I will talk about it next class for you, but I do want you to think to yourself, why are there not any cases related to the Third Amendment? Why has this not been a Supreme Court thing? All right, guys, that's the 3 cases I need you to brief. Short and sweet to kick things off. Expect that next video Thursday or Friday where I'll give you the rest of the things or we'll actually talk through the cases and then introduce the next amendments we'll go over. I hope you all have a great night and talk to you soon.